just one thing, Lana. Going forward, just please do the excuses for absence before the obits. Because when you listed the persons who had passed and were not with us, and then you said Comrade Drew Simmons, I was wondering a bit, I missed something. So I'm glad, for the record, I'm glad to know that Drew is alive and well and kicking, but just slightly under the weather. All right, everybody, thank you for coming out. I want to thank in advance Clyde for so willingly accepting our invitation twice, because he got the wrong date before. And then he got the correct date this time. But each time, without a pause, Clyde accepted our invitation. And Clyde, I will not touch on anything budget related. I'm leaving all of that to you. If I slip in, it's just by way of making another point, but I'm leaving all of that to you. Before we start, I just want to I like to single out people who do good things in the constituency. I like to single out people who achieve against the odds. I like to single out people who make strides and outdo themselves. There is a young lady in our constituency. I'm actually not seeing her in here at the moment. Are you talking about her? Get her inside. There's a young lady in our constituency who, y'all remember her from a couple years ago when she first started to associate herself with me. She was a little short, bony, scrawny. No, hold on. Was. Don't focus on the past. Let's focus on the present and the future. She was a tiny, tiny little thing. And about 3 years ago, she came to me and said, Minister, I want to learn how to swim. And Minister Humphrey, at the time, was in charge of Blue Economy, and he had done this swimming program at, I think, Brandon's Beach. And she wanted to get him, but it had closed already. Her mother said, Abrams, just please get her in. So I twist Kurt Humphrey's arm. And Kurt put in the young lady. He said she's going to drown, that's their fault. I said she ain't going to drown. So she went and she did that course. So understand, 3 years ago, she couldn't swim at all. At all. She went and did the course. She passed the course, and then she decided she wanted to take up swimming. And I was invited to her first swim meet. And I got there, and I watched her come last. I said, good Lord. Swimming might not be the thing for her. Maybe she could try something else. But she stuck it out. She went and trained every morning. What time you used to get to training? Like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, something ridiculous like that. Like early in the morning, every morning. And evening. Every time this girl could find herself in a pool, she was in a pool. She then decided she wanted to do cross-country running. And she started to do cross-country running. And it's one of the best cross-country runners in Barbados for her age group. And I'm happy to say that on Friday, when the list for Carifta athletes was published, one young lady by the name of Victory was selected to represent Barbados in the I think it's the aquathlon. That's you run first, then you swim, and then you run again, right? And she's doing this, as she said to me, she pausing. The only reason she ain't doing the triathlon yet because she ain't got a bicycle. But that's the next step. But I want to, Victory, come here, look. Come, Victory. This is my little, weak, frail, bony, unathletic young friend who is now a national athlete. Victory, congratulations. Cock, with enough determination, you can run a marathon. All right, so on to the business. Now, I'm going to try to focus on two things. I can try to focus on fire because some things happened last week that really bothered me. And I can try to focus on information and misinformation. We have heard the voices in the background and out of the shadows as we came up to the budget. And the voices were predicting doom and gloom. And the voices were saying with certainty what was and was not going to be included in the budget. So prior to the Honorable Prime Minister delivering her budget, her actual budget last Tuesday, any of you who have been paying attention to the voices in the shadows would have heard we getting washed away with taxes. There are going to be thousands and thousands of layoffs, and it's going to be brutal. So the whole country listened in on Tuesday to hear what new taxes we were getting, what more the government was going to take from us, who was getting laid off, and how many of one of them was getting home. Admit it, all you who tuned in on Tuesday to hear the budget were expecting the worst possible news. Not true. Seriously, not true. No, I knew that was not true. Because as we prepared for the budget, everybody had to put in the things for their ministries and our plans for our ministries and what we're going to do. The one theme that the Prime Minister was going on, she acknowledged that things had been rough for the last couple of years. It had been hard, not of our own making. We were battling forces outside of our control. We were battling and recovering from the ash. We were battling and recovering from Elsa. We were battling and recovering from the freak storm. And we were battling and still recovering from COVID. So it is not that things weren't done or the government was operating with malice. It is that we had unforeseen expenses that 3 years ago, nobody in Barbados, only the Lord himself knew that that was going to be visited on Barbados. In 2019, we were turning the corner. In 2019, we were scheduled to be probably the fastest country to emerge from an MF program. Not true, Clay. The fastest. We hit all of our targets and we were claiming out of that hole that the other people left us in. I don't want to call their name in here, truthfully. It's upset me. But we were claiming out of that hole. And then we got hit by a trifecta. And then some more. Barbados went through a lot. Money that was supposed to be spent on developmental programs had to go into building a hospital at Harrison Point. It had to go into feeding families who couldn't feed themselves during the lockdown. It had to go into buying vaccines and tests that we did not even contemplate. Barbados, like the rest of the world, came to a grinding halt for 2 years. And while other people have a cushion because of their size and their resources, we did not have that cushion. So things were hard, and the Prime Minister and the government acknowledged and knew that. That is why we took a decision that the one thing we were not going to do was to drop any more taxes on the people of Barbados. It is ours on our shoulder to figure out. We had to figure out how to turn our country around, shift the trajectory, and start to grow again without putting new taxes on our people. So when I heard all of the nonsense that was coming down the hill from somebody who can't seem to decide where he's standing or where he's sitting. He won't be with us, then he won't be with them, and chances are when they get rid of him, he can come back and won't be with us again. I don't have an issue with you seeking a home. Right? I mean, you all remember that song from E.T.? Everybody needs a place. Everybody needs a home. Sometimes home is the most desolate place of all. Just turn on your heart lights for those who can't remember it. I would sing it, but I think we're being carried live somewhere, so I can't do that to myself or to y'all. But the fact is, he went and spoke out of turn. And the Prime Minister came, and by the time we came that morning, and she came that afternoon to speak, the messages had been sent. I'm the Minister of Information. The first thing I do in the morning is get out and read every paper, read every blog, acquaint myself with what happened since last I was on the morning before. And she was advised as to what, and her position was, why would somebody go out and do this? They have no clue as to what we're doing. So you realize normally how a budget is structured. Clyde, I'm not trespassing in your area. I ain't going into nothing. How a budget is structured. You start to talk about the overall programs and whatnot, and then coming on to the end of it, you get down to the nitty-gritty. So the Prime Minister started up front by telling you, I can get the bad news. The bad news is that they ain't a bad news. Right? And she put it out there at the beginning. Now, what upset me? The man who had been speaking this as gospel, saying this is what the Barbados Labour Party was going to do. This is what the Prime Minister is going to do. When it did not happen, you would think that you would have some sort of shame. That I would have some degree of shame. But his response was, well, I know I say they're going to drop taxes on Barbados. I know I said they're going to cripple Barbados and send home people. But they didn't do that. But they didn't take off none either. Now, that is as lame and as pathetic as it gets. Any last shred of respect that I had for him disappeared on that day. And then they started to pick at things. He said that the budget ain't do nothing for the people of Barbados. Try telling that to every public worker who get the $1,500. Try telling that to the people in the postal service who get an increased allowance to buy electric motorcycles. Try telling that to the LIAT workers who the government was not obliged to pay them severance. But because it was fair, and because they were hurting, and because they had no other way to patch that hole, left when LIAT collapsed, the government stepped in to help our people and do right by them. We didn't have to do it, but it was the right thing to do. So try telling that to the ex-LIAT workers. I don't want to go. Clay can give you all the rest. He can give you all the rest. We ain't dropped no more taxes, but we couldn't remove the taxes that were there. Because the UE students still got to get paid for. The roads, we have embarked upon perhaps the most intensive road repair and rehabilitation program since I have been alive. Nobody can say the roads are not being paved. If a road ain't get paved by you, it's because we ain't get there yet. But if you're driving, you just got to drive up Bank Hall, road paved, up Bush Hall, road paved. In Christchurch, he's come down from over there by Gibbons Brow, come down by the windmill, road paved. Go through there by Granville, road paved. Some of the small roads through here, roads paved. And that's only in Christchurch East. Highway 1, the West Coast Road, the road paved, and all the utilities underground. That got to be paid for. Our sewage network that we're trying to expand, it has to be paid for. We have 50 electric buses in Barbados now. We're about to get 10 more coming on to the end of the year. They have to be paid for. The 25,750 electric lights that all about Barbados. You realize most of the lights on the streets in Barbados have been replaced by LED lights, energy efficient LED lights. They have to be paid for. The new reservoirs that we're building have to be paid for. The fire service, the new fire service headquarters and ambulance service headquarters in the Pine has to be paid for. All the expenditure that we are still suffering from the natural disasters, the houses that are being rebuilt for people who lost their houses in Elsa, they have to be paid for. We are trying to prepare people for this hurricane season and get hurricane straps on people's houses so the roofs don't blow off. They have to be paid for. I don't get it. I don't get what the point is. This is a budget of hope. And Clay can tell you all about that. This is a budget of hope. And the other side is just preaching doom and gloom. I don't understand what it is. Because while we sit down and think, how can we make life better? Their only task is to sit down and think, how can we criticize those who are trying to make life better? But it also shows that they're bereft of ideas because they could not see any way to move forward this year in Barbados without belaboring the backs of Bajans with taxes and without laying off people. That's the same approach they had in 2018. And that's why they get washed out then. They didn't come anything new last year and they get washed out again. They ain't got nothing new now. My advice, I'm not in the habit of giving advice to people. They say when your enemy's fighting and doing foolishness, you should just like step back and let them. my advice to Ronnie, because, Ronnie, you seem to be a nice fella. You're a bit confused. You're searching for a home, but you seem to be a good fella. You don't have to pick at everything. Let some things pass outside the off stump. Choose the ball to hit and try to hit it. When you pick at everything and you make it things to pick at, then you end up looking foolish and making a clone of yourself. But that's enough about him. Let me get to the other person that upset me. As I said, every single morning, I get up, turn on my computer or go on my phone, I read The Nation page to page. I read anything that CBC posted overnight, that VOB posted overnight. I read Barbados Today page to page. I read anything else. I read what's trending on CNN and whatnot. I make sure to appraise myself of everything that went on since I went to sleep. Because I do the same thing at night before I go to sleep. And if there are critical things, I would send a note to the minister to who it relates or send a note to the prime minister. So I like to inform myself of fact. We also don't hide. This government has been more forthright than any other government in the history of Barbados. CBC is giving you more information you ever had before. JS, how many of y'all follow JS? JS is throwing out information constantly. Not just government propaganda. It is throwing out information that's relevant to you about NCDs, about what's happening in Barbados, about what's happening in the Caribbean. Anybody who follows the public affairs, the same thing is happening. The information is there. This government is talking to the people of Barbados more than any other government has ever spoken to the people of Barbados. We have the rubbing shoulders. We have the Paris Speaks, where the MP, the Prime Minister, critical people from the ministries come and answer any question that the public has to put at them unfiltered. If you got an issue with garbage collection in your area, come and ask it. There's no filter. You can ask it exactly as you want to ask it. What may happen is that Ricky Redmond and those might cut out a part if it gets too aggressive or the language is too pungent. But your message gets across to the people that you want to answer your question, and answers are delivered to you. You get the facts, you get the information. I have nothing. I have no issue with bloggers at all. Actually, I read some of the blogs in Barbados to get information. I ain't advertising for nobody, but one of the main blogs I read is the Chase Files. Right? And I can tell you where the difference comes in. Some of the bloggers are responsible. Some of the bloggers will call me and ask, I heard this. Is this true? They will ask or WhatsApp me. And I will say yes or no or I don't know, or I will give an explanation. And they put out then what is fact, but they check it first. Some of them, I happen to know that Miss Chase got a lawyer. It's not me. It's not me. I happen to know as a fact, like sometimes Chase Files puts out some cutting edge things. That's the best way to describe it. Some cutting edge things. Land-based in the government sometimes, right? Land-based in the they put out some cutting edge things. Sometimes you see them put out something and take it down. But that's rare, right? Most of the times when you see it, you know that there's truth in this because they fact check and take legal advice. Not so with a certain fella. I am going to call his name because he's under my skin. I suggest that you in the press edit out the name, right? But I calling it. There is a fellow called Fred Corbin. You're going to know who we're talking about. Y'all may have heard something. Central Bank alert, Central Bank alert. The government of Barbados is about to appoint a Nigerian as the governor of the Central Bank. Y'all heard that? Y'all remember that? How that came out was representing itself as something from the government of Barbados. This fella, y'all may remember him when we had the vaccination meetings and whatnot, the town halls. He's the one who described himself as I think he said he was an aeronautical engineer, a nuclear something, or something, or something, or something. He had more degrees than everybody else in here put together. I ain't see one. I ain't see one. But the foolishness that he keeps spewing, that people in Barbados keep accepting as gospel, I actually wonder what is wrong. What is wrong? Free education helped everybody. It did not help him. No, I am not here to attack him. I'm here to attack what he's doing. The man keeps spewing nonsense across the landscape of Barbados that Barbadians are quick to latch on to. He white. He speak with an accent. He's talk pretty. And we assume, not me, because not me. And people assume that he's talking truth. The man told a whole bunch of foolishness and sparked up a whole debate in Barbados on and on about the governor of the central bank, the governor of the central bank, the governor of the central bank being a Nigerian. But for that, it was a Nigerian billionaire that had come here on an investment trip of his own doing, under his own money, put on things for himself, and he put out a video because he likes to enjoy himself. The man put out a video of his experiences. Somehow that became a video from the government of Barbados. I can tell you it ain't come from the government because at the end of the day, I'm the Minister of Information. That ain't come through me. But it went out. And we then had to stop what it was that we were doing. To respond to that, the Prime Minister had to come out and respond to that. These people are taking up our valuable time, chasing them and their foolishness, when we should be about the business of Barbados. How many of y'all read that thing about a new Computer Misuse Act that came out last Sunday? There I was, minding myself, minding my own business. I had a good Sunday last Sunday, and I ended up at a 6-year-old party. Carlton Douglas from across the road. Carol's daughter was 6 years old, and she had a party, and I went across. I had some real nice food, though. And I'm there enjoying myself. And I get must see about the 6th or 7th version of that thing saying that the government is about to drop a new Computer Misuse Act on Barbados that's going to make it illegal for you to take pictures of yourself. It's going to make it illegal of you to do X, Y, Z, and that before you go on social media, you have to go and speak and get permission from the relevant minister, or you have to send what it is that you plan to post to GIS. You all remember that? What complete nonsense. I spoke to the AG in the morning, and the AG said, man, nobody can believe that. I'm going to die down by this evening. By the evening, when that thing had been forwarded about 70,000 times, when people are calling me panicking, when the bloggers and the social media people up in arms with the government, two of them actually called me to ask me, is there any truth to this? And I was able to say, absolutely not. I ain't calling their names. It's two of the bloggers I respect. Others ran with it. The same set of them went to tongue on that the government is further trying to erode the rights of Bajans and whatnot. Now, anybody who knows anything about drafting, if you look at a piece of legislation, you say, you ain't supposed to do this, you ain't supposed to do that, you ain't supposed to do the next. And at the end of all the things you're not supposed to do, at the end they wrap up and say, but if you breach sections 10 to 15, you're guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to $1,000 or 6 months in prison. You don't say, if you post something without checking, $5,000 or 10 years. And if you take a picture yourself, $10,000 or 15 years. And if you film somebody in the backyard, $20,000 and 30,000 years. It don't work like that. But you don't expect people to understand that unless you're familiar with legislation. But good Lord, for a government that speaks to us, for a government that speaks to every single thing that we have done recently, every single thing that is major, that affects anybody's rights, we have come to the public on it before it was done. We went to full consultation on the child justice legislation. We went to full consultation on the child protection legislation. We've come out to people and to the public well in advance. We do not catch you by surprise. I cannot understand why people were so quick. We're so quick to believe that. A government who attempted to do what was suggested in there, actually, I would be first boy to go and vote them out. But they can't be serious. You force the AG to step in to protect the Minister of Information, Science and Technology and put out a statement, and he called it what it was. Dale is usually one who is very polite and diplomatic in his language. And he called it unmitigated garbage and complete and total nonsense. But that was so quick to gain currency. A paper on the piece of legislation came before Cabinet on Thursday. So I happen to know was proposed to be in the legislation. It's not finished drafting yet. None of that is in it. Nothing like that. It aims to stop people from exploiting children. It aims to stop people, the revenge porn, like you and your woman break up. And, all right, let me switch this around though for the fellas. You and your woman break up and then she send out pictures of you, right? That's revenge porn. It deals with that. It deals with people who groom children, who meet children on the internet and like start to bring them along so that they can exploit them. It deals with things to protect people, not to infringe people's rights. It does not seek to cut down your access to information or your freedom of expression. I know what's in it, and chances are at the next post-cabinet press conference, Minister Ishmael is going to come forward and say what it's all about. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I can tell you the foolishness that went out last Sunday was just that. It was complete nonsense. So I want to ask all of those, if you know that you're solely about grabbing headlines, stop it. If you know you're about stirring up foolishness, stop it. If the truth does not mean anything to you, do not hold yourself out as being any part of the media or being any source of information. Stop it. Fred Corbin, stop it. All the rest who follow him, stop it. We have come too far. And we have done too much to allow ourselves to slip and let people stir up nonsense in Barbados. Most folly is started by misinformation. A lot of wars are started by misinformation. You want me to point you to some sources? Let me tell you some of the things that have been happening. You have, as I said, JS providing all the information. You have Krista Hoyt with Indy Know. You have Lisa Lord with 101. You keep seeing public affairs extras, information extras, things coming on before the news, after the news. The information is there. You have the reputable media houses. You got the Nation newspaper. You got Barbados Today. You got Starcom Network. You got Capital Media. You got certain bloggers. If I did not leave you out, if I left you out, it's not like this in your thing, but I can't call all. But we know where to find the legitimate media from. We know where to find the legitimate news from. Stop allowing ourselves to be so easily misled. So I can come off my soapbox because I know, Clyde, I got to make way for you. But my last thing. Last Friday, we had a record number of fires in Barbados. We had a record number of fires in Barbados. The fire service was stretched to capacity last Friday. And it's emerging that people, to cure the cow witch problem, have taken to lighting bushes near them. And if you have rats in a lot near you, people have taken to lighting and burning down the bush out of the lots. We were very, very lucky last Friday because the sheer volume of fire and smoke was more than the Barbados Fire Service can handle. It was too much. It was 10 major fires in Barbados last week, Friday. 6 schools had to shut. The smoke from St. Philip went as far down as Bridgetown. Everybody, I bet you, everybody in here saw ash on Friday. Not true. It affects people who have asthma, respiratory ailments, sinus issues, issues with their eyes. We were lucky because one derelict house burned. One derelict house. But you heard from Sabu who said this is real dry. It is very, very dry right now. A fire can get out of control. If you have problems with courage in your area, please contact the Ministry of Health or the Polyclinic, or even contact the Barbados Fire Service and give them the information. And we will try to have that dealt with. If you got rodent issues because of a lot next to you, contact the Ministry of Health and we will have it dealt with. Do not set fires that you cannot possibly control when they get out of hand. If you drive on the highway, you saw the fires burn down and burn around houses. People were real lucky. The fires burnt around some houses. But quite equally, a lot of them places could have burned. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Barbados is not that place. We are a law-abiding place. We are a place that respect each other. We are a country that we love our neighbors and we come up in communities. We know the old person down the road. We know the young person who need a talking to. Let us go back to being those people who look out for each other in communities. Let us cut down on the fake news. Let us stop burning the fires. Let us do the things that we know we should do as responsible Barbadians. I promised at the beginning to try to limit what I was saying to fake news and fires, and I trust I have done that. And Clyde, I have not trespassed too much onto the budget. So Clyde, the budget is all at you. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out and just heed the words. Thank you very much. Sorry. Ricardo, the public orator for Christchurch East. You know, they say a man of letters, he's a man of letters and words. Ricardo will properly now introduce our guest speaker.
Good evening, all. Madam President Lana, fellow members of the executive, parliamentary representative, Comrade Wilfred Abrams, our former parliamentary representative, currently president of the Senate, Comrade Reginald Farley. It's with an abundance of pleasure and an equal amount of pride that I stand here this evening to introduce our feature speaker for our meeting. A fellow Combamerian, like yours truly. Our guest speaker this evening attended the Carefield campus of the University of the West Indies, where he graduated in 1984 with a first-class honors degree in economics. The award of a Commonwealth Scholarship took him to Queen's University in Canada in 1987, where he earned a master's degree in public finance, subsequently receiving his doctorate in economics from the University of the West Indies in 2014. Our guest speaker served the Central Bank of Barbados with distinction for some 15 years between 1979 to 1994, where his specialization, his special focus was direct and indirect taxation policies. He was instrumental, among other things, in formulating the tax initiatives of the early 1990s. And he's published several papers, among them Taxation, Government Expenditure, and labor productivity. It was on May the 27th, I beg your pardon, 2018, that he was appointed Chief Economic Advisor to the Minister of Finance, Economic Affairs, and Investment in the administration of the Prime Minister, Mia Amor Motley. Comrades of Christchurch East, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to our guest speaker for this evening, Ambassador Dr. Clyde Mascoll.
I suspect it's not silly season, right? Yeah. So, my task, good evening to you all. My task, therefore, is to educate you today, not entertain you. And I'm going to go straight to it. So, what is a budget? We all live in a household. We all earn money, and we spend money, and we budget. And in fact, some of you are much better capable of budgeting than many others, right? So we all budget. Now, for the government, it's a similar thing. What is government's budget? It is that government collects revenue, but it spends money. It spends money on many things: education, health, agriculture, tourism, small business, anything. But that's complicated. The important thing about a budget, whether we are home or we are in a government, is how does it impact on people? At home, you're spending money to make your family happy. A government is spending money to ensure principally that it can deliver goods and services to the people of Barbados. And more fundamentally, it is about spending money to help especially the vulnerable. And there's so many people that we have to take care of. Whether we're going to offer them education, whether you're going to offer them health care, welfare, it doesn't matter. The point of the matter is that you have to manage your budget well. Now, Wilfred, for anyone to understand a budget, they need to do some work. So you don't have to be in government to anticipate what a budget would do if you're doing your work. And why do I say that? When you're in opposition, you are waiting to become a government. So you have an opportunity, as much as you want to try to understand the process before you become the government. That's why you're in politics. And if the opposition were following the fiscal affairs of Barbados, they would have known that between April and December, the start of the fiscal period, and December, 9 months later, that the government of Barbados had a surplus of money. So, if you were in government, knowing what you know about budgeting, and you had a surplus, would you impose taxes? Huh? Well, it's that simple, people. Why would you have to impose a tax? Now, typically, over the years, when the black box was really the black box and was everybody anticipated it, our governments of yesteryear were practicing deficits. That is, when they added up their revenue and they minus what they're spending, they had a negative figure. So most times, the adjustment had to be, how do I narrow the gap between what I'm spending and what I'm getting from taxation? Most times, if you have a shortfall over the years, you may impose some kind of taxation. Or you may cut expenditure. But if you were following what the government is doing, and it is published, by the way, on the website of Parliament, in the fiscal framework, you would know that you could not have said that comment in anticipation of what was to come. So that we have a responsibility. And that responsibility heightens if you are hoping to become part of a government. So you don't make wild accusations prior to the presentation of the budget. It doesn't gain you anything to do so. It makes absolute sense, if you want to be political, to wait until the budget is delivered, and then, because it is the want of an opposition, you can be critical. But to go and make those kinds of comments prior to the delivery of the budget is to expose yourself. And what you have to do in politics is that you have to build a reputation in opposition. And the reputation is that when you speak, people want to listen. It's that simple. And if you stumble too often, then what is going to happen is that when you make all of these comments, eventually people will say, well, I know what is coming down the tube. And they will not be willing to listen to you. So let me see if we can bring this now to you, because we're here. This is not silly season. We're here to educate. Now we can take all of government spending and we can divide it into 4 things, believe it or not. Wages and salaries. Wages and salaries, you have to pay civil servants, you have to pay people who work in state-owned enterprises. You incur debt, so you have to pay the interest on the debt. So that's an expense. All schools, hospitals, departments of government require goods and services, toilet paper, pens, and the works. So you spend money on those things as well. And then government has something called transfers and subsidies, in which the government, say for high schools, in order for them to get access, they have boards, government transfers money, and the boards of the high schools will manage the money, as you well know, my dear. And then you have state-owned enterprises that have been the bane. That is, the likes of Transport Board, the Water Authority, the BMC, sanitation, and the works. Now, why are these things problematic, but so vital? And I want to share something with you. Almost each and every important service to the people of this country, the real critical services, are delivered by state-owned enterprises. And I want you to go through it with me. Transportation. All right, good. Healthcare. Sanitation. water, education, and we can go on. So that for a political party, the real relationship between the political party and its people will come in the delivery of those services. So if there's a problem with garbage, the people keep noise, don't they?
Correct.
Yeah. If there's a problem with water, they keep noise, don't they? If there's a problem with transport buses, more noise. You with me? So therefore, in a very strange way, state-owned enterprises are exceedingly critical in the relationship between the governed and those who govern, between the politician and the electorate. And that is so crucial for what we're about to talk about. Now, in ensuring, therefore, that you are happy, it makes sense that governments over the years, having taken your taxes, will ensure that they deliver adequate services. So that when we did not buy a bus for 12 years, and an old bus consumes diesel to the tune of $9,000 per month, one bus, it becomes a burden to the taxpayer. When you did not buy buses for 12 years, and the brake shoes in a bus have to be replaced every 6 weeks, it is a burden to taxpayers. When you have old buses that require maintenance, and you have to spend and spend, it becomes a burden to taxpayers. So when a government in the height of an IMF BERT program puts aside $50 million for the purchase of electric buses, of course people feel a sense of relief. So, in essence, what is critical is how your taxes are spent. And let us not forget, but since it's not the silly season, we will not repeat all. But we remember what was on the South Coast. We remember the difficulties in water. We remember the bus issues. We remember that we didn't have sanitation trucks. So all I'm saying to you is that the recent budget is only a continuation of good governance. It doesn't start with a budget. It is a continuation of good governance. So that when, in the throes of an IMF BERT program, a government gives substantial tax relief to Barbadians, it would have been phenomenal. That's why what recently happened in the wage settlement was a masterstroke. In that, because the poor tend to be more pressured by increases, say, in a bus fare, or rise in, or some imposition of water, to have given a $1,500 across the board means that the person working at the lower end of the salary scale receive relatively more. You with me? And that's the beauty of it. But there's another beauty. That you have to pay for it. So if you have to pay for it, and the Prime Minister could deliver and then say, but it has to be paid for before the end of March. What does it tell you? That she has it, right? But how did she get it? Because by the end of December, there was a surplus. And as is the case, in the quarter of January to March, the government of Barbados collects more revenue during that period because of the payment of corporation taxes than in any other period. So if you're having a surplus by the end of December, you can expect that surplus to rise by the end of March. It wouldn't get worse because the government can control expenditure since it is discretionary. So therefore, let's look at the budget. You give a wage increase of $1,500 for the previous year, but you're making the payment before the end of March because you have it. And then you increase the salaries the 1st of April by 3% and the following 3% on top of a 5% in 2018. Now, you can do the compounding because this is one instance in which 5 plus 3 plus 11 plus 3 should be 11, but it would be more because you're imposing 6% on top of 5%. So it is more. Now, if that is the case, people, then answer yourself the question. I want this to be interactive. The VAT was imposed on a cap, was imposed on gasoline, the VAT. And you know how it happened? Because when the government made a forecast a year or year and a half ago about its revenue collection, it would have made a forecast with the understanding that the price of a barrel of oil would be X. If X moves to 2X or goes above, it means that the price of gasoline will rise. Since the VAT is a percentage imposition on the price, it means that as the price rises, the government will collect more. Because it would collect more, it can take the decision that it does not want that extra revenue, having forecast that it only wants X. So therefore, it will forego anything beyond X. And that's all the VAT cap is. That's all it is. You with me? Now, doesn't stop there. You remember that we introduced a minimum wage? Yes. And I hate to do this because I hate to sound like I doing something. But you know how we did the minimum wage in Barbados? We drove from Spikestown to Bay Street and stopped at each gas station and asked for the young lady or young man who was getting the lowest per hour fee or wage. And then we drove from Bay Street to Rice's, and on the south coast stopped at each gas station and did a similar thing. And then we drove the next day down the highway from the airport gas station to the one at mile and a quarter. And along that path, in those 2 days, we covered 28 gas stations out of 42 in Barbados. And why gas stations? There's a reason. Gasoline and diesel constitute the only two products in this country which you know from the import stage to the retail stage what the markups are. So you can then do all the value-added stuff in between there, right? Because all you need then is to know how much gas was consumed. And because there's a fixed price, you can gross it up. And because of that, we were able then to compare some of the paltry wages that were being paid. In fact, there's one gas station close to Culloden Farm that was paying a young lady $5.60 per hour. And we then used the agriculture wage, and that was $8.77 per hour, and gross up from $6.50 in the legislation to $8.50 as a minimum wage for Barbadians. But there's another thing, you know. You know that for years we were practicing a very strange habit of classifying a farm A worker in agriculture and a farm B worker, and we were paying them differently. But there was a strange thing happening. Farm B worker was female, and a farm A worker was male. And even though they were doing the same work, they were being paid differently. Until recent times, that has been rectified. So, there's so many things that we can talk about. And that brings us now back to the budget. Because rather than increase taxes, pensioners, I suspect, well, she was headmistress for a long time. And if I'm what I am now, I mean, as young as she looks. The allowance was increased from 40,000 to 45,000. Yeah. Right. So rather than increasing taxation, there's relief. And this comes on top of what happened in 2019. And the reductions were generous. Now, let's go and just choose a few of these things. Now, for years, all of us know that perhaps when you visit Broad Street, you could see particular characters. I hardly go to Broad Street, by the way. Linemen outside of certain stores. And then you could almost approach with an expectation. And it may be delivered that a particular product may come at a lower price than a corresponding product across the street. You aware of that?
Yes.
And what you call it? Aye. So I didn't say it. So therefore, the government now is asking, because we suspect leakages, for re-registration in order to do some stuff. And also for people now to participate, because businesses are not good at giving information. But you can only make good decisions if you have good information. So whenever you plan to speculate that somebody is doing you wrong, make sure you have the information. You with me? Don't accuse, even when you're close. So, in order then to get where we want to go, we are trying to lower the cost of doing business in this sector, and those measures were 3 in the budget. And you know why that's important? Because in this budget, since I told you about a surplus and there was no imposition of tax, what do you think is the aim of the budget? To bring relief. But what has been the problem in Barbados for the last 14 years, 15 years? What happened in the last decade? No growth. So the economy got smaller. Right. And why is that important? Because when an economy grows, the government does not have to increase taxes in order to get more revenue. It naturally gets more revenue as a result of the spending. So when an economy doesn't grow, the revenue contracts. Right? But if you're not familiar with what you're doing and you respond to that contraction by an imposition of tax, what do you think will happen? It will further contraction. And when there's further contraction, it means, therefore, that the government is getting less revenue, but on the other hand, your expenditure is going like this, doing like this. And if you're not familiar with what you're doing, you can create folly. Now, if you have to borrow because you have a shortfall, but you don't have a credit rating, what happens? So you have to pay more to borrow. You with me? So as you pay more to borrow, it becomes an expense. And the expense becomes part of your expenditure. Because I said to you earlier, there are 4 categories of expenditure: wages and salaries, interest on debt, transfers and subsidies, goods and services. So therefore, what happened in Barbados is that because we had to borrow at 12 and 13%, it became an expense. Now, let me explain that. That's for me? Yes. Oh. I don't have a big voice, so. Now, when you borrow $100,000 and you build a home with it, you have converted money to a house, a real asset. You agree? Yes. Good. So, if you have converted the money to a house, what is the cost of the borrowing? The interest that you pay. So the interest becomes an expense because you can't take the money and convert to a house and then you've done that already. So the only expenditure cost to you then is the interest. Good. So that has been the problem in Barbados for the last several years. Huh? Yeah. Nah. No, let me talk about it. Let me talk about this. Because the government had to borrow enough money, but where was borrowing from? Central bank. Oh, good. Central bank. Central bank does work. Huh? So where's printing money? If you can put money in an economy without creating it through some productive means, is like a helicopter going over us now and saying, hey, let go and pick it up. Yes, sir? But you haven't worked for it, buddy. But you're going to spend. Deadly, boy. Deadly. Dangerous. You know why it's so deadly? Because if you had earned it, you have done something for it. It means that when you spend it, you can net it off. That is, a tourist might have given you it because you sold them something. But when you get it for free and you spend it, it now impacts on the reserves of the country because we import a lot. Yeah. So what happens then is that it's deadly. Printing money can be deadly. But you need to have access to some money. It's like all of us must have an overdraft facility if we have a business, so that we can synchronize between when the money is coming in and when it is not. So we can use the overdraft until, and especially if you have seasonal flows of money. So, say in the sugar industry, when money comes in only when you start to make sugar, all the rest of the year, you don't have money. So you need to have money there to make sure that you can handle that period when you don't. All right? And that's what overdraft facilities can do for you. So we had a very outstanding economist actually at that time suggesting that there was nothing wrong with printing money. until there was a final admission that we were printing 50 million a month. And then until the political class decided it is time to push you under the bus. Never compromise your profession. No matter which profession you're in, if you are asked to give an opinion, give it. Yes, ma'am. Richie Haynes did not see only persons who were in the NDP, right? You think he did? Well, given how many votes they got, he would not have been able to survive. So you had to be seeing people other than NDP supporters. You with me? You think that he analyzed them and determined that because they're B's or D's, that he should give them a different kind of medication? You think he did that? No. Because he was what? Professional. So it doesn't matter. Give a professional opinion when called upon. Listen, and if you understand your profession, you can give a professional opinion, but you can still twist it to suit you. You agree? Because there's nothing final about it. It's an opinion. And rather, as bright as you may think you are, you can have your own opinion, but not your own facts. So you can have an opinion, but the government will impose more taxes, was an opinion. But it was based on what? Facts or fiction? You with me? Now, to get to the facts, you need therefore to study. So even when you're in opposition, you have to find a way to know. You have to find a way to know. You have to take the time to work. And if you have pride, you will do that. You will do research. Because it is there to be done. It is okay to have pride, but you need to have industry. And the two go hand in hand. The more industrious you are, the more you can beam with pride. Agreed, Mom? I am closely associated with your institution. I know. Yeah. So, the thing is, in opposition, there's an opportunity to have a reputation. That is good. People understand that you're a politician, but they also understand that they're judging you because you are in waiting. And unless you're prepared to do the kind of work that is necessary to prepare you, you're going to feel the pinch eventually. I well recall when I was in another place and I said, opposition parties do not win elections. Governments lose elections. And therefore, you need to be prepared in the event that you're given the chance to run the country. You have to be prepared to do so. I was told that I'm academic and esoteric. And lo and behold, a chance was given. But history will show the abundance of failure. Why? You were not prepared for the task. It's one thing to want to lead. It is another thing to know how you will lead. So it is important that in any endeavor of life, that you're ultimately responsible for what you give to that endeavor by dint of hard work and practice. Do you think it's accidental, Wilfred, that your young friend who had an appetite to become a swimmer has succeeded? Why has she succeeded?
Hard work, determination,
And and it was not believed. If you had to judge her on her initial endowments, you would never have predicted that she thing. And that happens to so many of us in life in this country. And the notion that where you go to school excludes you is absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. And therefore, that you be judged by which color you wear or tie is further rubbish. You know why? Life does not stop after you leave secondary school. And if people are prepared to put in the work, you'll be surprised to see how some late boomers will do. But this thing about judging you, and I don't want to cross into education. I have my own view. I don't want to go there because I'm no longer a politician. But I will say this. I understand the trauma associated with having one test to determine my future. And therefore, it is my view that the weight of that test should be reduced, such that ongoing evaluation becomes part of the assessment. And you know why? So I still find myself making my comment. My difficulty is that you cannot allow one test to determine the outcome, and that ongoing evaluation should bear some weight in the allocation process. But more importantly, if you prevent it from happening, the very next term when you are in secondary school, exams re-emerge. The folly of it all. You with me?
perfectly.
So you say, don't have it now, but then the very next year, exams start back onto the rest of your life. So that is Clyde's view. Remember, Clyde's no longer, so you can have an opinion on this matter. No, you ain't finished yet. Let me go. There's some other good things in this budget. Now, I spoke to you earlier about expenditure. Now, capital expenditure is what governments do to build projects. Political parties that are democratic socialist parties historically have extracted enough money from the paying tax people in a way that allows them to have a surplus. And they use that surplus to help finance roads and buildings. It's the same thing that you do technically at home. So if you want to add an additional room to your house, even if you borrow, you have to be able to repay. So if you have to repay, then you make sure that you have a surplus at the end of the month after you have attended to your electricity bill, your food, such that you can pay back the bank to expand your house. And never take your cash and do it. And here's why. The room lives forever. Maybe would outlive you. So don't take up cash to expand your house. It makes sense to borrow to do so. You with me? Yes, hold it. Hold it, yes. Because, yes, this asset, and the others have done it for years, whoever the others are. Whoever the others are have done it for years. They have used people's money to create wealth. You with me? Good. So don't take cash and invest in something that has a life. They move. You got me? Good. Now, the government is renting a whole set of real estate to put people in. Make sense to you? No. So, rather than rent, why not purchase and take the rented money and buy the building that you then own, and you could do whatever you like with it. You with me? Yeah. So renting, unless you're forced to do it, you can avoid doing it in this instance. So that's what the government is planning to do. Anything wrong with that? No. Good. Now here's the real deal. Now, I have spent a lot of time in the last couple of years in state-owned enterprises. Transport Board, Sanitation, Water Authority, BRA, BMC, which I chair, and some others. And you know what is the main problem in Barbados? You know what is the main problem? No. Right. Okay. There's a gap. Wilfred, you know that some ministries are large. You really feel that a minister could ever get the time to deal with his or her ministry? Why? First of all, is not in one place. Secondly, a large number of people you're dealing with, right? So the thing is, you need a structure that allows for management to occur between here and there. You need here, middle, right? Because in all fairness, when I go to any of these institutions, right, I go and I tell the boss, I'm here. I was sent. I have permission to come, but it's not you that I want to work with. You see, I don't expect the boss to know what I want to find out. Because what the boss is doing too many things. You with me? So I go to the people who actually do the work. No disrespect to managers. Right? Managers, except for one I know, are really coordinating stuff. So to understand this stuff, you need to go. So we need to strengthen the middle management in the public sector. So the initiative here is about training management trainees in order for them to become better able to deliver the outcomes for the political class. So again, that's the initiative that one could understand. And ongoing training, you never know enough. You can't. You can never know. You can't ever. No man is an island. And therefore, you're in a process of continual learning and appreciating and understanding. But you know what is most fundamental to me? I said this already. I know it is good to be qualified academically. But you see practical stuff? You see understanding how a job is done and getting it done? Right? That is what is impressive to me. Not all the qualification and then you can make the connection between output and input. Right? Because you come theoretical. And you can't beat the fellow who gets things done. You with me? And you know you don't need 1,000 degrees to get things done. Again, no disrespect to anybody. Just saying what you observe. That when a fella is doing a job and doing it to the best of his or her ability, that's what you want. But our society was fundamentally rooted, and one could understand this, in getting through doors and then being able to have all the little etiquette. And the etiquette, in many respects, took you further than the qualification. Because we know again how when the pursuit is money, that you don't necessarily have to have the qualification to get it. So what could happen then is that you can step around certain situations and then bring in people to support you. A very clever technique. Very, very clever technique. You have certain resources, you buy the others, you come put them together, and you make the money. Nothing wrong with that. But there's something wrong with overemphasizing the pursuit of paper. And in this instance, it's not paper with a value on it, except that it says you are certified to do X. But all education ultimately is about using it to make income. Wilfred wanted to be a lawyer, but let me say this to him. I have no doubt he was inspired by the money that he will make. Somebody wanted to be a doctor. Very good. I have no doubt that they were also inspired by the money, because education is actually an investment. And that's a fact. It's an investment. Now, this fellow pleases my heart. $12.6 million for community sports. Top class. Top class. I wanted to be a sportsman. I was on my way and I was interrupted. But more importantly, I want to tell the government this. In addition to the building of the centers, assign some of this money to preparing the turfs. You with me? Because I'm telling you this, I played a lot of sports. If a fella can get a good football field to play football on, it can inspire him to become a top-class footballer. You with me? And that's the beauty of it, too. When you see English football and you see the deck is as smooth as you could want. Now, if you could play football without having to, as we had years ago, he was a cricketer, you know.
So you heard.
Huh? Stafford was from my area, too. I have to salute him every time I see him. He's in my area. And he left 3 years after I born. But he's an important element of my area. But he would know what I'm talking about. Now, you played cricket years ago on some fields, and the cracks were so wide that fella could run 6. Because by the time the ball gets in the crack, you can't get it out. Yes, so I'm saying to you, that it's important and very vital to make sure, along with the stadia, that we actually have the playing fields so well prepared as to encourage people to want to play sports, right? But that is important. Now, I can go on, but I'm going to finish here on this one. You've heard about creating a unit trust in Barbados. The thing is that we need, especially in this environment, to be able to provide our people with access to a wider opportunity for the creation of wealth. Now, we're income people. We get a job, we earn X amount of income, and we control what we spend in order to have excess. That is not going to create wealth. That is not going to create wealth. That can give you a good standard quality of life. You build you a nice house, and you hope that you live long enough to be able to service the mortgage and don't leave any burden to anyone. And you had a good life. But to get out of where we are, we need to create wealth. And wealth comes from investing. Now, when you don't have enough to invest as an individual, but you can pool with others, that is when you give the opportunity to a wider base of people. All credit unions are indicative of that, where wisdom coming out of meet interns, and we all know about it, the meet interns, right? Yeah, and mommy's sending you down the road to give so-and-so $50. And then when her turn comes around, it may be 600, right? Or more, you understand? But it requires trust. Right, you have the person receiving it must pay back into it. Right. But you know what also did? It allows small sums to become larger sums. Because if you give me $125 per month, and I want you to multiply 125 by 12, what it comes to? Yeah. Anybody do it? I serious. Take your calculator. You got 10. Yeah. By 10.
I can multiply it by 10.
Yeah. No, right. Multiply it by 10. Huh? I can do this for you all. No. This is deliberate. I don't want to multiply either. I doing this deliberately. 125 by 12. Magically comes to 50. Coming back here. If you were to give a civil servant $125 more per month, as opposed to $1,500 per month, which one do you think he'll prefer? No, if it is permanent. But if it's temporary, you prefer the lump sum. Yes, you with me? And why? Bigger, right? Lump sum. Yeah. Similar thing. So, in essence, then, the 1,500 that you got would have been 125. But you would prefer to get it 12 months, over 12 months? Or one time?
And it sounds like a lot.
You? You unusual. Yeah. It's not rational. Yeah, most people would want the $1,500 one time. Yeah, rather than 125 in drips over the 12-month period. Right? So the essence of the unit trust then is that it will allow for people to put resources into a more secured pool in order to be able to make the investment. So I'll end on this to show you how it can work. What is the new goal in Barbados? The new gold. Anybody else? Solar. Yeah, renewable energy. Good. New goal in Barbados. Yes, very good. And what happened now is that you're going to be able to save on your electricity bill. And you have done so. Thank you. Are you making money on it? You are saving the electricity bill, but are you creating wealth? No. To truly create wealth with renewable energy, you need to pool together. Now you're seeing across this country a whole set of panels going up. They are yours? Who they belong to? Ah. But what else is required? Capital. And then land. So in essence then, yes, we can get, and you have your 18 panels and you have reduced your electricity bill, but we need to be able to create wealth. And therefore, if you can pool the resources to allow the average man or the average credit union to invest in the creation of renewable energy, then you can spread some of that wealth, because the rate of return is very good. How much money do you get now on your deposits at a commercial bank? 0 point. So it means that your money now is resting in the commercial bank. And you're getting less than a cent on every what? Not a dollar. Near 1,000, right? Good. Now, what is the lending rate? 6%. All right. So let us do a little calculation. Yeah. If a man is buying your money for less than 1/10 for 1 cent, but selling it for 6 cents, you know how much money he's making? You better believe it. I know you would know that figure. Because all the deposit rate is that I'm paying you to keep your money. And I'm then using your money to make money. But if I'm buying your money at less than a 10 for 1 cent, and then selling it, which is the loan rate, whoa. People, you with me? So, the issue then becomes, are you willing to pool what you have rather than keep it there in order for it to be utilized to get access to the new gold in town? Because in the absence of doing that, who is going to get it? Only the bank. What about renewable energy? Who will get it? Who will get the renewable energy? So when I look at the budget and I put context to it, I cannot conclude that it is not a good budget. Can you? It didn't increase taxes. It is hoping now to achieve the major objective for us. Earlier I told you that when we did not grow as an economy, the government suffered because the revenue could not grow. The only way out of the current situation is to grow. I'm embarrassed to tell you that I spent 10 years writing an article in The Nation, and that was really the only message. The only way out of what we were going through was to grow the economy. And we are still at that point where growth, and the beauty of growth is that when the economy grows, the government does not have to tax you, because it gets, and I end on this, every $100 million spent in the economy, the government gets naturally 25 million. So that's a fact. So if the economy is a $10 billion economy and it grows by 1%, take off the thing, and then you do 25% of that. Every $100 million spent gives the government naturally $25 million more in revenue. And you know why? Because, no, this young lady's first degree is in economics. Former headmistress of QC.
Treasurer.
Yes. So what happens then is that when you spend $1 here and a fellow receives it, he spends it there, another fellow receives it, and then he spends it somewhere else. It's called a multiplier effect, right? And it multiplies the more you consume. If you put it in the bank, so the more you consume, the more it multiplies. And when the economy grows, and a little fella in Oistins gets access to something from a tourist, having sold the tourist something, and he spends that money, and it goes round and round the economy does this like the Hulk, right? And, yeah, and as it gets bigger, the government gets a portion of it. The only way out is to make sure that there's growth. So the major objective of the budget is growth. All right? Thank you for listening.
As indicated, we're going to have a Q&A. So if anybody wants to ask either myself or Dr. Mascoll anything that is members as the press, feel free. Sorry, anybody wants to ask Clyde anything relating to the budget? Please go ahead, because he's no longer a politician. Well, this is the first time ever through the microphone open to the press, and we didn't get a question. Well, it was. Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Gone. Clyde, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm going to invite Corinne, who you've dated her. She was the headmistress when you were there, you said? Oh. Corinne, I'm going to ask you to come and please thank Clyde for his excellent presentation.
I'm surrounded by QC.
Okay.
Minister Abrams, members of the press, members of Christchurch East, it is my pleasure to say thank you so much to Dr. Mascoll for his excellent presentation. He was witty, he was interesting, it was down to earth, and every single person in this room understood exactly what he was saying. He did not give economic speak, which was up in the air that only an economist could understand. Every single person understand. He talked about bread and butter issues. He talked about everything that we could all understand. So thank you so much, Professor Mascoll. It was our pleasure and our privilege to hear you speak.
Thank you once again, Dr. Mascoll. And moving on now to any other business. I'd like to repeat the 85th anniversary celebrations for those who may not have heard or who may not have been here when I mentioned them earlier.